Get ready to quit the build.
Here we go.
The QTB Crew is rounding up all the gaming news and hot topics of the week with a little extra something. And here are your hosts, Bruno, Brad, and Nick.
What it do? You're listening to the QTB podcast. I'm your host, Bruno, and with me are the boys of QTB, the brothers McMuffin. We got the famous Nick and the Devil's Bradvocate coming in here. What it do, boys? What it do? That is
what is going on? I'm telling you, we have been
hashtag
intro. It has been a very fun week for QTB. I've been getting back into the jingle game. I got to tell you. You know, yeah. I've been pumping out the jams, and of course my take on all the small things by Blink-182 got some fun time track. Over 1 million views on that on TikTok. So people were going crazy for the I mean, and it's a real it's a real problem. You know, when I come up with these things, it's real life experiences because guys, I know you've been there where you have the big shield. It's the first thing you find when you drop. You find one big shield. And you're like, well, wait a second, maybe I should use it now. But you're like, wait, no. If I get some small shields, you know, or another big shield, I'll have full shields. But if you use the big shield, then you will find smalls, and you'll be like, oh, I blew it, you know. But if you do use it or you don't use it, you'll never find those smalls.
That's the wrong one. That's the wrong horn. I meant the other horn. Yeah. Oh, wham.
It's the shield paradox.
Yeah. Yes, it is.
Yep. Mm-hmm.
No, I know exactly what you're talking about, but I know Brad and I like to just hoard shields. That's just our game strategy, and we'll just literally wait until we find one, and then we'll pop that shield right there and get off to town. You know what I'm talking about?
Yeah.
I feel like it really is a chicken.
It depends on where you land. I feel like if you land outside of a major drop, you have a little bit more time to find those small pods. But if you land in a hot zone, you got to pop that big shield just to make it through that first 2 minutes because it's kind of hectic. You want to make it through that first wave of elims, and so it's Murphy's Law at Fortnite. You always pick up that first big shield, you pop it. The next thing you know, that next chest, it's got smalls. It happens all the time.
Every time. Yep. We've all been there.
I gotta ask you, Nick, though. You've been back on your jingle game, though. You've been back on your jingle. Mm-hmm. Today's Valentine's Day as we speak. Mm-hmm. Did you write the wife her own jingle for Valentine's Day? Did you do it?
That would have been a strong play, but you'll never know, and I'll never tell.
Uh-huh. Yeah. All right.
You know, It doesn't take that long to make them, Brad. That's all I'll say.
See, that's why people got to tune in and see the video because that's premium content right there. Nick's
premium,
the delivery and the facial,
the
accompanying the facial. Me. Yeah,
mm-hmm.
it was good. It was good.
the corner mouth.
I gotta ask though. I'm gonna throw it on the limb here. I'm gonna throw a curveball because it is Valentine's Day. The wife and I were having a talk earlier. Cheesiest, corniest love songs. Oh. I'm going to toss it out to both of you. If you had to pick one that to you may be cheesy, but you love it, or maybe cheesy and you hate it, what's one to the test of time that you would put on that list?
Ooh. You want to go first on this one, Bruno? You thinking? Need me to stall for you?
Yeah, go for it, because I'm trying to think of a cheesy one, you know.
I'm gonna go for. I mean, if for pure cheese factor, I'm gonna go for "I Need a Hero" by was it Bonnie Tyler? I need a hero. I'm holding up.
Wow.
It actually gets me pumped up. But as far as the actual the lyrical content of the song, it's so stereotypical cheesy of like I need this exact stereotype of like a manly man.
See?
You know.
Look at Nick. He went rock. See, when I think cheesy love songs, I immediately think ballads. I don't think of the rock songs. So it's important. We got to keep that genre in mind. I think of things like "Endless Love" by Lionel Richie and Diana Ross, or Casey and JoJo "All My Life."
You mean stuff we used to dance to in middle school.
Brian McKnight, Back at One. I mean, there's a lot out there.
It was high school for me. But Nick, Nick, you didn't have dances, did you? What did you have?
We had a banquet because dancing was evil, and I was in a very, very strict private school. Also, we have Rah Rah in chat saying Careless Whisper. Yeah.
I was going to say Careless Whisper, but I love it so much. Like, it is serious. I mean, I can't even find it on here because I have no clue where I put it, but it is one of my favorite songs. So even though it's cheesy,
iconic
once you hear that
man.
sax, right? Like that's what's up. So
that's it.
I'm all over that.
Well, all I have to say is you guys are my bros. Happy Valentine's Day to you. And a quick shout out to the QTB wives. Shout out to all three of them. Happy Valentine's Day. Thanks for supporting us. And happy Valentine's Day to all our listeners out there. Hope you guys are having a good day. Full of love from your family and your friends. That's all I gotta say.
That's so sweet. That's so sweet. Yeah, happy Valentine's Day to everybody. And even if there isn't someone special in your life, the important thing is, and that's the nice thing about us here at QTB, we are a community. We're here for you. Yeah. We've had people posting, Valentine's Day and single memes in our Discord server pretty much all day. And it is what it is. You can kind of commiserate a little bit together. You know what I mean? And all I'm saying is we've had people find love in QTB. So,
I mean,
right.
So let us know. Let us know what you think your cheesy love song is in the chat or on Discord.
Bravo. You've been sitting on that one. You've been sitting on that one.
I see. Brad never hears the.
Didn't hear it.
He never hears the soundboard, so he doesn't get to appreciate. Nick can hear it. I can hear it. Hopefully, you can hear it. Brad here never hears it, so that's why he just stares blankly into the sun.
We'll figure that part out one day. Our audio engineer will solve the enigma.
Oh, I heard that one. There was crickets. Barely.
You can't do a cross-eyed face without a warning. It's delightful. Oh my gosh, the Costco joke you told earlier. Whatever.
Oh
Anybody?
My gosh,
guys, look. Welcome in. This is, of course, the QTV podcast, talking about the latest gaming news. A little bit later, we're going to be talking about the Nintendo Direct and our reactions to it, and also this story about Game Pass and what it ends up doing to the sales of new games, as per a report that Microsoft put out. But of course, as always, first thing we're going to do here, guys, is do a quick roundtable here. We just talked about our Valentine's Day plans. We got to talk about what we've been playing. Okay, Brad, anything exciting happening for you there in the gaming space this week?
No, not really. I tuned into the bowl of the supers this past weekend. And I was all in the sports. So I was enjoying your sports jingle because I am one of those guys. So and watched that and enjoyed some time with some family and friends. So taking that break. I did play a little bit of which preview to come. We'll talk a little bit about what in our first story. A little bit of the addition to the Nintendo Switch. So I'll just leave it at that for now.
Yeah, definitely. And, I do want to say in regards to sports, bravo, Philadelphia. Even though your team lost, you only flipped one car. And that's got to be an all-time low, right? They just flipped the one car. Normally it's, anything at a stoplight is doing a 180 in the wrong, but doing a barrel roll. Oh my gosh. But yeah, okay. Well, as far as my week has been going, again, just a lot of the live streams. We've been having a blast. Once again, we did just a really fun Mario Kart stream this week, and we also got to have that Discord event there, playing some Fall Guys that we improvised. It was a lot of fun. Got to chat with a lot of our regulars and gather around one of the things that we enjoy doing best, which is just playing Fall Guys and seeing who's the best bean. Games still ticking. Unlike a lot of live service games in 2023, Fall Guys is still here.
That's good. I like that.
Yeah. What about you, Bruno?
I've been playing more Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild. I actually tried that glitch that I was going to do with the Master Sword, and I did get it. So it did work. I was happy about that. And then I could kind of rest easy moving forward throughout the game, because there's one thing that I don't like about Breath of the Wild. It's the breakable weapons. That is a very, very hard concept for me to get behind. It seems a little, I don't know. like unnecessary, maybe. I don't know. Maybe you like something like that, but I'd prefer a mode where weapons weren't unbreakable. You know, maybe shields, I can understand something like that. Or if it's a low level, sword. But after a certain point, I think if you've got something really good, it shouldn't be breakable. I mean, even the Master Sword has a cooldown on it, right? Mm-hmm. Which is to me, like, they really wanted to force you to use other weapons as if players, I don't know. Like, I think the whole point behind an RPG is to play how you want to play. And this is basically kind of saying, like, you've got to play the way we want you to play. And just in case, we're going to throw this little caveat in and put a timer in with your Master Sword. So, that's my only gripe. But, I mean, Nick, you played the game, right?
Yeah, I've beaten the game. I mean, it's my thing was, it really is a bummer to get the Master Sword and then realize like there's a gimmick in place to make sure that you can't just always use it. But at least you get to keep it. My bigger thing was with shields, right? Shields are a big part of the game. I love, like, I went out of my way to find where I could get the Hylian shield, which is kind of tucked away kind of there towards the end of the game, but you could get it early enough if you knew how. And to find out that it still has a limited amount of duration before it breaks, that was a bummer, especially because the concept of shield surfing, I don't know if you've done that in the game, where you can go to the top of a hill and use your shield. It degrades the shield quality really quickly, despite being a really fun mechanic. So, like, it seemed like they were trying a little bit too hard to jump into the kind of open world survival that was very popular at the time and still is. Games like Rust, Daisy, that kind of thing, where they wanted things to have a finite quality to them. I think they went a little bit too far in that regard. And we'll be talking about the sequel here with our reactions. I was going to say that's a perfect segue because with the launch of the new Tears of the Kingdom coming up, a lot of people are looking at that at a $70 title. And they're saying, I don't know if it's worth a $70 title on a Switch here, but I mean, if you give me those mechanics and take away that crappy part that I don't like I'm all for it. So yeah, definitely. Well, I'll tell you what won't cost you $70, and that is our amazing sponsors, guys, over at Winner Winner Live Arcade. I say that because when you play their live trivia or play their mobile games, guys, you are going to have a blast. And they give you the tokens, you get the daily login bonuses, and you can play amazing live, not only live trivia, live claw machines, but also great mobile games. Don't miss out on those, because when you play them, they're all your favorite game types. If you like action, strategy, word games, it's all there for you at Winner Winner Live Arcade. The app available on, of course, Android and iOS. Brad showcasing it there, as he always does so well, showing you the amazing selection. Stack the Blocks, that's a classic. They got Slices, they got Word Crush, and the list goes on. Check them out, win those tickets. Guys, I'm going to be once again hosting live trivia tomorrow. That's Wednesday, February 15th at 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, 5 p.m. Pacific. There it is. He found the live trivia where you can win a huge ticket jackpot if you can answer all of my video game-themed questions correctly. No one got it last time, so let's see if we can get someone that can break through with their gaming knowledge and take home that jackpot. And I'm also told by Winner Winner there's going to be a very special prize awaiting us there during that time frame. We'll be getting more into that when we go live, so check it out tomorrow. As always, guys, use the link in our show notes, or if you're watching this on TikTok, you can use the link in our profile. Just go to the Winner Winner Live Arcade link. Otherwise, you'll find it in the show notes if you're listening or watching this on other platforms. And don't forget, you can also use that other link in the show notes. That's pay.app.winnerwinner.com to get a sweet deal with 45% bonus tokens when you use promo code WhatItDo at checkout. That's WhatItDo. And yeah, Winner Winner in chat saying it's the dancing token for me. I mean, we got it all. Brad's is modeling the app. Bruno's handling the dance moves, and you haven't stopped the dance moves since I started this bit. That's dedication. That's dedication. What a team!
I need a puppet.
You too.
I need a puppet, guys.
We need to get a token puppet stack.
We need a token puppet. Okay.
Yeah.
Winner, winner. Get on that.
That's right.
I want a token puppet. We had the Grinch hand, which was One of my
That was good
favorite
stuff.
things.
Yeah.
Oh, we need to put up a video. We should put up a little video of that, Nick. That's
The Grinch
something
ham
that-
was absolutely delightful. Yeah.
Get on that, me.
Get on that. That's right. Winner says, "Sir, yes, sir." There you go. Well, guys, our first big story here for today is coming from of course, really directly from Nintendo, but this recap is compliments of GamesRadar.com, talking about everything announced at the Nintendo Direct that happened just a little bit earlier in last week. And I mean, well, let's just go right down the list here because, we kind of talked in the last episode about our speculation about what we saw would happen. Brad, you had put out a really good prediction, which was that the timing of it was set to be a little more friendlier to people in the U.S., which meant there was probably going to be a bigger announcement somewhere tucked away in that. Let's just go straight to you, Brad, for your reactions to it. Do you think that this overall Direct delivered on that concept of aiming it towards everybody for a big announcement?
I think so. I think it kind of hit on a couple different things really well, right? So we talk about meeting the, I would say, minimum expectation, clarifying on things that were kind of already advertised, and then advertising a couple brand new things. So I think you got updates on things like, you got a new trailer for Legend of Zelda. You got the release date for the Advance Wars 1+2 reboot camp, which had been announced or kind of shown and teased. And then for me, which I teased earlier in our What Are We Playing, the big surprise for me, which was an immediate play, was I went to my Switch and I downloaded the Game Boy and Game Boy Advanced extension coming to Switch Online, and I jumped into that right away. And that to me was an instant win. It was instantly accessible right on Switch Online eShop, and I immediately was able to jump in some of those classics like Super Mario and the Game Boy Advance Mario Kart. I mean, there were the original Kirby Adventures on the original Game Boy, which I have my original Game Boy copy of that.
Oh yeah.
And just to go, the nostalgia factor is at an all-time high. So for me to have that be a surprise release, didn't expect that at all, was a major win for me. I don't know, Bruno, what do you think?
Oh, definitely. That was a huge, I mean, albeit the library is very, very limited right now. I'll take what I can get, right? I have an emulator that has every single Game Boy Color and Game Boy Advance. I mean, pretty much every game invented right on the machine. And Nick tried it out and, he was like, wow, this is actually really good. There's no latency or anything like that in the emulator, which can, often be a problem. And so we know that Sony has the ability to put more of these games on the system. I'm just wondering why they haven't, right? Because when you go on there are some classics on there that I'm like, I'll jump in and play that. Super Mario Land 2 and the Golden Coins. That was an instant, jump right in with that. But there were other titles on there that I was like, that we're not really the American market, right? Like wasn't a super popular game. So, while it is great, I do think that like drip feeding us games is something they need to get over. Like they need to pursue something else in terms of like getting people on board with, and if you're gonna drip feed it, like then do it every week. You know what I mean? Give us something every week and be like, here's 2 more games on Game Boy or whatever, and then by the end of the month you've got a significant amount added to the library. So I don't know, Brad, do you think it was a really good selection, or were you kind of disappointed, that there wasn't like, for example, Pokemon on there, like, and we'll get to that, right? Like, obviously they won't, that's a hard sell.
There's some strategies. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I'll chime in a bit here and then I'll pass it to Nick. I think the one thing I would say I've been a tad critical on is for all of those. I mean, not even just the Game Boy and Game Boy Advance, but even for N64 or even Super Nintendo. Sometimes the initial release library is a bit thin and they kind of like hang their hats on 1 or 2 titles. But I have to say that, I wonder if they have certain licensing, challenges with certain titles, and being able to even emulate and port them to the Switch is some work, right? So you wonder about resources and time and focus, right? Are they focused on next gen development? Or are they focused on porting old games? And there's got to be a balance, right? So I think for me to be a part of a family plan where that's affordable and I'm getting my bang for my buck and getting all of that included along with what I can play that is designed for the Switch, I'm pretty satisfied right now. But I do agree. I'm not going to be happy if this maintains the status quo for a significant period of time. How about you, Nick?
Here's where I'm at with it, which is I got hyped. I mean, it was definitely an awesome announcement. I think we knew, and we had talked about this in previous episodes, that like the back end had already been established, and people kind of data mined that to know that like, yeah, these platforms were coming. I didn't expect to see them on this one, and I really expected it to stop at the Game Boy. The GBA edition was a nice one. And I will say this, the GBA emulation is top tier. Some people did some really deep dives on the back end because a lot of emulators, they just don't quite get everything right in terms of delivering an authentic experience. They have one of the best GBA emulators that rivals like the best of what you can get right now with people that it's their passion, right? So I don't know how they're arranging that, but kudos, because when the N64 emulation first came out, people were pretty concerned, and they made some corrections to that to help get it on course. Now, that being said, my thoughts on it are I'm still concerned, because what we're seeing right now is that Nintendo is expanding their catalog laterally without any depth whatsoever in the actual platforms like Bruno had brought up that they are offering right now. I look back to the NES and SNES libraries. When this first came out and NES and SNES were the two things that you could get, they were fast and furious with releasing not only first-party releases, but even some obscure titles or even titles that you could only get in Japan or only in one region. They did a really, really good job with keeping up with that and being like, every couple weeks they had, usually 2 or 3 drops that you could check out, or even special versions of games. That was awesome. But then it slowed down to a drip feed where we're lucky if we get one game every couple months on the NES, on the SNES, and now they're bringing out these new platforms. And I'm sorry, but for a game platform like the Game Boy and the GBA that has a huge library of games, and the size of these games is so small, there really isn't an excuse, I think, to have more available in the third-party realm. I know licensing is going to get kind of tricky, but there's got to be a better way. That I do want to see more from it. And I think I have the same concern that you two guys have, which is that we're going to see 6 months go by and maybe we'll get, they showed some of the titles that are going to be coming. More than likely, those are the titles that you're going to see for the remainder of the year, if that. Yeah.
Here's a point. I wonder if they're tracking all of their Switch Online expansion subscriptions and they're going to be teasing another big update to get folks to renew. Right? Everyone has to renew up every year, right? And they kind of have an idea of when that peak and valley is. Why not launch something right before or right after those expire, so then people do re-up for another year so they can play those games? I mean, think about it. Every subscription service needs some type of mid to long-term plan to keep people subscribed. And I would assume that this drip feed that Bruno kind of coined earlier is kind of maybe a strategy in enabling long-term subscription to Switch Online expansion.
Yeah, I think it makes sense.
To the chagrin or disappointment to us who want all of that now, and not to segue prematurely into our next topic, but, kind of not really, kind of emulating Game Pass, but it being very slow. Yeah. Right? You're essentially getting things at a much slower pace, where Game Pass was an extensive library from the get-go that is constantly being added to for the same for a monthly cost, right? This is a yearly cost, but it's getting a bit more slower in terms of how much content is being constantly refreshed or added to the platform.
Sure. And what else I'll say is that, obviously we're gonna get to the kind of the main feature that most Nintendo Directs have, which of course is Tears of the Kingdom. But before we hop into that, I do want to kind of just go over and see, did you guys have any other games that really stood out to you as an exciting addition? One thing that I saw that I'm definitely pumped about is Advanced Wars 1 and 2 Reboot Camp. I love those games on the Game Boy Advance. Really, really fun, and for me, the gold standard for turn-based strategy games. Very simple, but also has a lot of complexity hidden underneath, and just a really fun franchise that deserves a lot more love than it's gotten in recent years. So I hope that reboot does well. Also, as a Sega fan, I could not believe that they announced a new Samba de Amigo game. Okay, so for those of you that don't know, back in the Dreamcast days, there was a little game called Samba de Amigo, when we were in the height of the rhythm game craze, right? Everyone was making their own rhythm peripherals, right, to be the next DDR.
100 combos.
Yeah, well, they went to 1,000 combos, Bruno, because they said
1,000 combos.
They went straight to it because
oh my gosh.
They released this really fun rhythm game that used maracas instead of anything else. I played the heck out of that game as a kid. I mean, it wasn't cheap. You had to have the Dreamcast. You had to have the special controllers with like the sensors. But the game hasn't seen any other releases since the Dreamcast. So I can't believe it's taken them this late in the Switch's lifespan to realize that the Switch controllers are the perfect replicas of the maraca.
Oh yeah.
And to create a game around that concept. So I am really pumped to see if this game does well. I love it when obscure Sega franchises kind of get their chance to shine again, and I think this is going to be that. So those were my two that I think really stood out for me. What about you guys? Did either of you have something that also kind of popped out?
Brad?
Mario Kart 8 Wave 4. Birdo coming, the new DLC.
Okay.
Birdo is
That's
here.
always, I mean, you can't help but not like getting more Mario Kart 8 DLC. I mean, it's a constant. So I think that for me is kind of shout out to the show. Shout out to Mario Kart.
Yeah.
Yeah. Definitely.
Yeah.
I mean, I think it was just a well-rounded, pretty typical. I think, we're hearing a lot of chatter about whether or not the Switch is entering its final phase and I think that this is a very interesting time, and I think that they are testing the waters with Tears of the Kingdom. And I think that the release of that at a $70 price point for the Switch is a big thing because that's a huge jump for them without any jump in necessarily graphic fidelity for the game, right? And we're assuming that this is going to be equal or a worthy successor to Breath of the Wild, right?
Yeah.
Like we hold that game in such high esteem that to kind of put this out there is a really bold move. It really is a bold move from Nintendo. And I think that this is their way of testing whether or not what the reaction is, right? The game's been done and kind of worked on for a while. And I think that they're really just kind of, just really dipping their toe in there to see whether or not they can get away with it to extend the life of the Switch, because I think that obviously we want better graphics, right?
Mm-hmm.
We all want better graphics, but at the same point, as I've been playing through the catalog of games through the Switch, as I recently got one, and Brad, I'm sure you can attest to this as well, since you just recently got one, the graphics still hold up. They're great. I don't know what more we want in a cartoon world, in terms of like, the ray tracing and whatnot of a Super Mario game, right? I just don't know that that's where Nintendo's ambitions lie. I don't think it's necessarily in improving the graphic content. I think more so they'd be more apt to produce something that had better mobile performance, right? Because that's where you see the dip when it's not docked. And so that's where their aim is probably going to be towards the mobile presentation of this, in terms of making it more mobile friendly and less of a strain on games like Sonic Frontiers that recently came out, which was very harsh, right? So that's where I think that they're kind of, testing this out. I don't know if you guys agree, but Brad's been stewing, shooting lasers at me. I don't know.
Oh, no. I was giving you the floor. I think you have a lot of valid points. I was going to let Nick chime in first.
No, I think. Well, we have confirmation from Nintendo that they are going to be releasing, at least a couple more major first-party titles for the Switch. So the Switch is going to be here for a while, and I think Nintendo recognizes a diminishing return that's happening right now in the industry, where hyperrealism is not what it used to be, or at least isn't as highly valued as it used to be in AAA gaming. Mainly just because at what point do you lose your identity for that race, right? You think back to the mid 90s when everyone raced to be the first to make and the best to make 3D games, and there were winners and losers. And I think in that process, a lot of IPs that were better suited to 2D lost some of their identity. I'm looking at you, Bubsy 3D. That one of the worst 3D games ever.
Sure.
I had a bone to pick. But no, I think that especially when you see games like Breath of the Wild that run beautifully on the Switch, despite the fairly high-end graphics, I would say, that the Nintendo Switch is still proving itself to be more than capable of putting out high-quality games. And by the way, I do want to give a shout-out to Metroid Prime, the remaster. Thank you, Nintendo, for releasing a remaster of a beloved game, just dropping it out of the blue. No one knew this was coming. Selling it for $40. It is incredibly highly rated. If you love Metroid and you've played the original or haven't played the original, you want to check out Metroid Prime Remastered, and not have your marketing team hype it up for months and months in advance like it's the next big thing, the second coming of gaming. I'm looking at you, Last of Us Remastered.
Yep.
Like, I understand it's a valuable IP, but the game, and this is a game that came out a while back, right? This was early GameCube when the original Metroid Prime came out. So I think that that was a master class in the correct and the classiest way to release a game like that people want.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. I'm with you, Nick, and to answer Bruno's point, I hope it's not the end of the Switch, because I'll be honest, I just bought one a couple months ago, and I bought the OLED edition, and so I can tell you, playing on your TV, you want to maximize your graphics, but I have to tell you, playing the OLED Switch edition handheld, it looks incredible. I just want to tell you, even that upgrade from the original Switch has made a significant impact in how seamless and beautiful the games look when you play it in your hands. Yeah. So, I think there's a lot to be optimistic about here, that we still are not as close to the end with the Switch's life cycle as we think. And I think this type of release, I told you at the beginning, it kind of checked all the boxes. It gave you what you were expecting. It teased some new things, and it gave you things instantly right off the bat, right when it ended, for you to get your hands on. So I think in every way, this really delivered in terms of a Nintendo Direct.
Sure.
Well, and to put the cherry on top of this, Nintendo Sunday, I would say that the release of the Game Boy should have everybody, wondering about the past of Nintendo in terms of how long the Game Boy lasted, and the Game Boy Color in terms of like what they produced. Even up with the Game Boy Advance, before they really took a change in the way they did cartridges. Nintendo has a history of longevity with consoles. So if it works, they're not gonna, abandon it right away. So I think people hoping for something more, I think just stick to PC, right? Like, there are tons of mods out there.
There's mods, and I'll tell you what you mentioned longevity, Bruno, and if there's one thing I know about longevity is that I am getting all sorts of longevity out of my new energy supplement. That is, of course, our friends over at Advanced GG. Because, guys, this is all of the energy, all the focus that you need without the crash. Bruno's rocking that beautiful shaker right there with the Beta. Show him the Beta sticker, too. That Beta sticker is got a nice shimmer to it. It's got a nice shimmer. Our in-house musician there. Good stuff here at Quit the Bill and the QTB network. But, guys, Advanced.gg has amazing products. They've got amazing powders, even pre-mixed drinks, to give you the energy, the boost that you need to be the best you can at gaming and beyond. I use it every morning. It's kind of been my morning coffee replacement. And fun flavors too, guys. The melon cream pop just came out. That, if you think it's tasty, wait till you try it. And the cotton candy flavor just got restocked as well. A very popular flavor amongst our QTB regulars is the strawberry shortcake. You can mix it with milk, just ask Caitlin. Try it out, guys. And of course, when you use promo code QTB at advance.gg, you will get 10% off your next order. So thanks, as always, to our amazing friends over at Advanced.gg. Really, really great products. We all of us use it. So you know it's good. You can always check us out in the Discord to see what we've been using, what we've been up to. I just got my next order coming in, so make sure to check that out. And guys, our next story is coming from over at, I believe, Games Radar. And this story, IGN for this story, talking about Game Pass and how effectively it is cannibalizing sales is how they're phrasing this. Wow. Now, the reason why this happened is that the confirmation was included as part of the UK Competition and Markets Authority. Oh boy, that was a video that wasn't supposed to pop up. Basically what it's doing is there's been this whole ongoing legal battle, right, between Microsoft and all these different regulatory boards across the country, across the world, that have been saying, not so much. So they've been really getting into it with the UK lately. And one of the things that they had to do was publish some information showing that, hey, Game Pass is not the overwhelming market force that you think it is, right? They're trying to downplay it. And as part of that, they showed that in this, a little bit. There's some trolling happening here, I think. Embedded within this document, which is almost 300 pages, was a paragraph revealing that Microsoft had basically submitted an internal analysis saying that there was a undisclosed percentage decline in base game sales 12 months following a game's addition to the Game Pass, saying that, hey, once this game has been on Game Pass, a year after it is added to Game Pass, the sales dip at least sharply enough to make a statistic out of it compared to if a game had not released on Game Pass at all. So, I mean, this has kind of sparked a conversation, as it always does within the gaming industry right now, because Game Pass is the subscription model to beat, about whether or not it's viable long-term for these companies to produce games and develop games with the idea of Game Pass in mind. I'll throw this over to you, Bruno. When you see stories like this, I mean, do you think it's just kind of politics of them just trying to say what needs to be said to get this passed? Or do you think there's any real case to be made here that a game wouldn't want to release on Game Pass?
I would say that for a lot of these developers of really, really small indie games, exposure is something that they need, right? Like, that is a marketing tool that is very, very essential. Look at the Super Bowl, right? They don't pay their performers. You're put on the main stage and the in front of the world, and you kind of do it out of the goodness of your heart. No, for promotional reasons, right? Like, obviously. So anytime you're put on a major platform or given a major platform in which to present your game, instead of getting lost in the masses, I think that you kind of take that hit and say, this might help. Maybe we can find other ways to get support. And that's where microtransactions or, some type of pass style or DLC content that you can, add on to your game. I think that that's a great way to do things. And then not only that, you can also release your game on a limited time for Game Pass, right? So you can limit the time that you're on there. So that way, if you have a fun game, maybe you release it for an extended period of time. And on the back end of that question, Nick, I think that Xbox is eating a lot of these costs, when it comes to the studios that they've acquired and that they're putting up in front of everyone. Brad has an amazing Costco chicken theory. Tell him about it, Brad.
Tell him about the Costco.
Tell him about the Costco, Brad.
Thanks, Bruno. Woo! Well, no, I mean, you think about this. I mean, we've heard before that, Microsoft admits that Game Pass doesn't make money, right? And now, obviously, it's a reason. It's like the Costco chicken, Costco or the hot dog, right? They've kept the hot dog at price at $1.50 for forever. Same thing with the roasted chicken. You get a nice big roasted chicken for $5, and they've admitted that they're eating a loss on that. But it's a loss leader, because what it does, it gets people in the door and allows people, and they spend on average more money coming in because they're going to be buying a chicken than if they didn't have those for $5. And so I look at this sometimes, and you read these things as Game Pass, not worth it for these titles. To Bruno's first point about exposure, if something doesn't get you in the door and you don't get your game visible, then no one's going to buy it. If this is a great platform for people, for developers to get their games visible to a large audience very quickly, and then give your game a chance to have that visibility, and then you're right, Bruno. Maybe you negotiate a time framed a short time frame on the Game Pass, and then it's removed, and then people have the chance, if they love it, to go buy it, and then it gives you that chance to recoup or add additional revenue to your pocket instead of it just being on Game Pass. But I don't see why you wouldn't want to pay that price to get that exposure to these games. And these games really, I mean, you could argue maybe there's a few that are the exceptions to every rule, that maybe if they were an exclusive title, they'd make way more money than being on Game Pass. But that's the exception, not the rule. I think for every 95% of games are benefiting from being in the Game Pass model versus being an exclusive title.
Yeah, I 100% agree with the points raised there. You know, I think a good comparison point to something that happened recently is there was a commercial that aired during the Super Bowl for Tubi, right? Which is it's an app basically. It's free TV, free movies, and actually I think is an app that's slept on. I'm glad they got some Super Bowl exposure. Yeah, probably spent their whole budget for 2023 on that, and those ads. But there was a really cool.
How did that commercial get people, man? That's what I'm saying. It was clever.
The troll commercial was good, right? Where people thought that someone was sitting on the remote. That was awesome. Yeah. I'm actually talking about the other one where it was people getting like dragged away with those like Donnie Darko looking rabbits into those rabbit holes, right? And as they're falling, they see all these TV shows that they're just immersed by, and it says like find the next rabbit hole you didn't know you were looking for with Tubi. And here's the thing about the gaming industry right now is that maybe many people talk about the great gaming crash back in the 80s, right? That was a physical gaming crash, right? Where there was a low quality of games and everybody was producing them. And of course, ET was the straw that broke the camel's back. Well, we're not quite there with a gaming crash, but we're kind of experiencing the digital equivalency of that. You look at platforms like Nintendo and Steam. Nintendo, that used to be all about the seal of quality, having only the best of the best quality games being offered on their platform. Now they'll take anything. Yeah. And you can sell it for 10 cents. It's embarrassing. And the result of that, and Steam is the same way, is that we are inundated. Now, we are savvy consumers, right? But not the 99.9% of gamers aren't going to know every single franchise or every game or be able to do much beyond look at the screenshots and maybe the video that's provided on the page itself. And the result of that is that it is just very difficult. You get into what most people call, not I call it, but what most people call analysis paralysis, that you've got these billion different games to choose from. Where do you even begin to scratch the surface? And I think that, Game Pass does for games what Tubi is doing for TV, which is to say, hey, come on in for these 2 or 3 series or shows that you recognize and stay for the deep cut games that you would have never, ever tried if it wasn't for Game Pass in the first place. And I promise you in 2023 that if you take any developer who's developing an indie game and said to them, if you got a guarantee, because they get paid up front for this, if you had a guarantee that you would be on Game Pass before this game was finished, because they don't know when they're developing a game if it's going to wind up on Game Pass unless it's a first-party game, that they would all say yes, because there's so many unknowns. In today's day and age, guys, you have to be a social media wizard when you are promoting your game. And a lot of these people, it's just one person, maybe 2, maybe 3. You got to develop the game. You got to take care of all these back-end things while also figuring out, how am I going to make my game go viral? How am I going to get that one video on TikTok or on Reddit that makes people really stop and say, hey, we want to check out that game? Because if you don't get it, your game is going to flop no matter how good it is, and unless that one streamer just happens to latch on and give you exposure. So there's no way in 2023 that a developer wouldn't take that opportunity if given the chance. Honestly, I think this article is just, people are looking for the clickbaits, and that's just the way the gaming journalism and journalism in general is in modern times, is they're trying to take that one. We don't even know the percentage. The percentage was literally redacted. It could have been a 5% decrease in sales, and that's not factoring in the upfront money that they're getting to guarantee that they're going to be successful with the launch of their game. I think it's a non-story, but it's still a good conversation to have, right, Bruno?
Definitely. I think that there's a lot of people that are skeptical of the Game Pass model and its longevity or how it might affect the ecosystem of gaming. Looking at you, PlayStation. But I think that it's good for gamers overall, right? Like, I think that obviously you want people in the door and you want people on the platform. And I think of all the times that PlayStation chooses to use their new slogan of PlayStation is for the players. And then I realize the limitations that they have, especially when they say, PlayStation has no limits. So they literally do the opposite of their slogans through every step of the marketing process. And it couldn't be more laughable because you're like, wait a minute, I really do have limitations and it isn't really for me, because they're not listening to what players really want, in terms of the emulation brought to the actual system, to being able to play those, something Xbox worked on years ago with the Xbox One, right? Like they had backwards compatibility with the Xbox 360 and we're still here we are in 2023 and still not able to play some of those games, on the modern console. I think it's a travesty.
Yeah.
Well, and let's break this down again. Like you said, Nick, this was a small anecdote in a 277-page document. When you really read that sentence, a redacted percentage decline in base game sales 12 months, 1 year following their addition to Game Pass. So that tells me two things, right? If we think about when games come out, they're super big in the first 3 to 6 months, and there is a dip then after the fact that the people who wanted to buy it either pre-ordered or bought it at launch. And then there's the other group of people who wait to hear how the game is and wait for reviews or wait till it goes on sale. And when do games usually go on sale? About a year after they're released, right? All of a sudden, those $70 titles become $40 titles or $35 titles. And that's called the second sales wave, right? You discount the product and you get that second sales wave. Okay, well, that's probably what they're talking about here, is that decline in sales when they went after a year. Because the other part that's telling me is that there's a decline in sales after 12 months of being on the Game Pass. That tells me that Microsoft has a whole heck of a lot of people on Game Pass because you've basically absorbed that second sales market. You have. Because everyone else is like, well, why spend $35, $50, $70 on one game? That's 6 months of the Game Pass, and I'm getting that game included, plus the whole library of others. So, yeah, no wonder that second sales market may be declining because all those people who were a part of that are saying, hey, the Game Pass is the model for me. And I don't have to wait that long to be able to play this game or buy a AAA title at half price and I have to wait a year later. I get it day one on the Game Pass plus all these other games that I get to play. And so, yeah, when you really dissect that statement, it really doesn't say much. It just, one, tells you Game Pass is probably really successful. And two, the only games that really have a significant percentage that they were concerned about are probably the 2 or 3 AAA games that really have longevity, probably like your Call of Duties or your, the games that are going to be the big deal in this acquisition, which is what it's tied to, right?
Yeah.
They're trying to make us think about this acquisition saying, well, we're going to lose money if this acquisition goes through because we're going to lose that money on sales. Well, it's like, really? Like, let's be real. The Game Pass works. It's got a huge audience. I really, especially with the upfront money, you wonder really how much of a percentage that really is. So when I sat here and dissected that a bit more, it's really not saying much to me.
No,
it's really not.
And you made a point about that, Brad. I think that a lot of gamers are waiting for those reviews, waiting for gameplay to come out to make their decision. And with Game Pass, you don't have to worry about that. Because you can say, one for me. I'm glad I didn't spend $60 on this. We talked about that with Halo, right? Having not, bought the actual game and just played the played the release. I think that model is becoming more important to gamers as we look to the future of gaming and what is sustainable for gaming. Not to mention, you've got two types of games, right? You've got your single player experiences, and then you've got something that's more multiplayer focused. And the push for both of these is that freemium type of twist, right? That subscription-based twist where we're paying for a subscription to a service to get these single player experiences, or we're paying for a battle pass subscription for the multiplayer games to keep that afloat. So there's a subscription service tied to either one of these things, and the dip of these games a year later, I look at something like every single one of PlayStation's exclusive and how many people are playing that a year later.
Yeah.
If it's not a remaster, who's playing it, Nick? And that's exactly why we're getting The Last of Us remastered for like the third time.
Yeah.
Like, it doesn't need to be. Like, we already have it. For them to remaster something like that again and not just straight up give it to PlayStation owners is a testament to their nickel and diming strategy that perpetuates through every cell of PlayStation's body.
Yeah.
And I hate to get salty, so I think we should just wrap it up.
No, hey,
Thank
look.
you so much.
Take us out. Just skip the rest. I'll end with this one small point, and that is we just talked about this last week on the stream, which is about Hi-Fi Rush, right? The success of the game. Don't forget that this was and you can go right back to the last episode when we chatted about this story, that Hi-Fi Rush has outperformed Forspoken, which is, of course, Hi-Fi Rush is out on Xbox and PC, and Forspoken's out on PlayStation and PC. Hi-Fi Rush has outperformed Forspoken on Steam sales. Okay, so just looking at the PC sales alone, and that's the other thing that you have to factor in, is that for a lot of these platforms, Xbox isn't the only place that you buy them. You also, a lot of these indie games also release on the Switch, because the Switch is a very indie-friendly platform to sell your games on, because the console's in the hands of just so many people by now, that it's, Game Pass isn't the end-all be-all, and I think there's a hyper-fixation on it because it is the industry leader in subscription-based services right now for a good reason. So, and I'll tell you what else is one heck of a deal and an industry leader in value. Hey, Brad, tell me, I am looking to get, I was going to spend this $2 on my wife for a Valentine's Day, but I realized that with inflation, the cost of everything is just through the roof for even just like a box of chocolates. Is there anything I can get for this $2 right here that would be worth my money?
Yeah, I think for you and your wife, you could get a subscription to our QTB's Patreon. Patreon. Why don't you tell them about it?
Take my money. That's right, Brad. Yeah, guys, thank you as always to our amazing Patreon supporters. I'm talking about our Patreon QTB Plus supporters: Epic Capture Productions, Matt.Bat, Alexa, Caitlin, Josh, Courtney, Megan, Ashley, and Andrea. And our those are our Enfuego supporters. And our QTB Plus supporters: Nick, the Dudist Monk, Indie Gamiacs, Alan Abadessa, Mr. Grove Games, The Intergalactic Pinecomb, Fluffy Bunny, Terry the Kitten, and Maddie. Thank you all so much. That's right, Brad. For as little as $2 a month, $2, you get access to our incredible back catalog of podcast, bonus content, even ringtone jingles of your favorite songs, like the Kirby Balls jingle. You can get the official ringtone version on our Patreon. Just scroll back a little bit, you'll find it. And so much more, $5 and up at the QTB Plus tier. You're going to get merch you can't get anywhere else. What are you thinking, Brad?
I'm just going to say, we got to get our community. Kudos to our Enfuego and QTB Plus subscribers. Share it with your friends. I want to make sure that Nick cannot finish that in one breath. I want to make him pause. I want him to be able to not say everyone's names in one breath. I'm tossing that challenge out now.
Okay.
Join our Patreon and make Nick run out of breath. That's what we need.
From now on, every episode, I'm going to go for the big breath at the beginning, and we'll see if I can make it. Whenever I can't, we know we've made it to the big time.
That's what I'm saying. I'm saying, we're getting there. We're close. I can tell. But you're an expert. You're a veteran of the business. So we need to make that happen.
Okay, the Make Nick Run Out of Breath challenge, guys. If you want to help us out, again, just go to patreon.com/quitthebuild, or you can go to the link in our bio if you're watching this live stream. Just go to that Patreon, that P logo there when you go to our beacons.ai link in our profile. Thank you, as always, to everyone that helps keep the lights on here at QTB. Well, guys, yeah, that's going to about do it for today's episode. Don't forget to our Patreon supporters, QTB Nights, coming up this Monday at 11 p.m. Eastern, 8 p.m. Pacific. Going to be a fun time there. My gosh, we got more live streams, of course, coming up. We got more Kirby content. We have the new Kirby game, Kirby's Return to Dreamland, the deluxe version of that for the Switch coming up soon. You know we're playing that for Curbs Days. And even some new YouTube content in the works there, Bruno, right?
Yes. I hopped on the trend of getting my mom or somebody's mom. No, it's my mom. I just grabbed some mom off the street and pulled her in here, and I said, "Hey,
please do that. Please do that.
Someone's mom.
This is someone's mom."
Yeah.
And put some Mario characters up there and then just said, "Hey, name these characters." And that's what she did. So I gotta tell you, she did a pretty darn good job too.
Content.
That's right. Bruno's new catchphrase.
That's exactly what we do. This is content. I mean,
can we get James Earl Jones to do that? This is content.
Have you heard
Morgan
that?
Freeman? Can we get any of them? I mean,
yes, we use the voice AI changer, and have you seen that? That's pretty scary.
It's freakishly accurate these days.
It really is.
Yep.
I don't know. You know whose voice I bet you they don't have?
What's that?
The guy from Supermarket Sweet Nick. I'm
David
telling
Ruprecht?
you, there's no way he hasn't. But I gotta tell you, you guys have been amazing. Thanks so much for tuning in to the QTB podcast. For Nick and Brad, I'm Bruno.
For Bruno and Brad, I'm Nick.
And for Nick and Bruno, I'm Brad.
Peace out. What it do?
Quit the Build.